I'm really excited to spend the next 30 minutes with you. And of course, since this is a program on gratitude, I am grateful for your time and interest today. Today's about providing some insights on the research and benefits of gratitude. We're also planning two follow-up webinars, one on October 11th and the other one on November 13th. We'll share that information with you as we move further into today's program. Our objectives. We'll start with an appreciation of the origin and the celebration of World Gratitude Day. We're going to learn how researchers define gratitude and why it matters. And we'll begin to look at some of the personal and organizational benefits of gratitude. We'll see the importance of how gratitude is becoming a leadership essential, and how the practice of gratitude can improve our own health and well-being. We'll take a look at the obstacles that inhibit us from practicing regularly and some guidelines that will help us achieve the benefits that we'll be talking about today. I've also prepared a few personal and organizational applications to share with you, both for yourself at your workplace and in the spirit of World Gratitude Day. And we'll have time at the end of today's webinar for your questions, and I'm certainly happy to stay on the line past 12:30 for anyone that's interested. Before we get into it, I'd like you to consider two questions as we go through the program and maybe put your responses in the chat box. One is, what else would you like to know about gratitude? And what would help you create more gratitude in your life? A week from tomorrow is World Gratitude Day. So we have about a week to get ready for any plans that you might want to include. The origin of World Gratitude Day actually started in 1965 at the International East-West Conference in Hawaii on Thanksgiving Day. And the attendees pledged that they would go back to their home countries and have a gratitude gathering on the following September 21st. The program was mostly spearheaded by a spiritual leader by the name of Shari Chimoy, and it was actually later adopted by the United Nations Meditation Group as an opportunity to appreciate things big and small, their words. And it is a time of reflection on the state of being grateful around the world. So what is gratitude? Dr. Robert Edmonds is the foremost researcher, and he defines gratitude as an affirmation of goodness and the recognition of goodness outside of ourselves. It also engages three aspects of our mind. We intellectually recognize the benefit, we willingly acknowledge the giver or the gift, and we emotionally appreciate what we receive. Furthermore, there are two core principles at the heart of feeling grateful. One is that there's a perceived genuine effort from the giver. It's not about being indebted to someone. And there's a real value and fulfillment of something that's important to us as the receiver. Some of you may be familiar with positive psychology, which is the science of optimal human functioning. One of the co-founders, Chris Peterson, refers to gratitude as a strength. And French author Jean-Baptiste refers to gratitude as a memory of the heart. Cicero, the Roman philosopher, considers gratitude the parent of all virtues, the virtue of virtues. The wonderful thing about gratitude is that it blocks toxic emotions. We cannot be grateful and be angry at the same time. I love this quote by Alex Kolb, and for some of you who might be multitasking or driving and listening, I will read this to you. There's a gratitude circuit in your brain badly in need of a workout. Strengthening that circuit brings the power to elevate your physical and mental health, boost happiness, improve sleep, and help you feel more connected to other people. Why it matters. Through a sustained gratitude practice, overall health and well-being does improve over time. Researchers at UC Davis have found grateful people to report higher levels of positive emotions, optimism, lower levels of depression and stress, more hours of sleep, increased resistance to pain. And for the health and wellness experts on the webinar today, it correlates to better exercise habits and taking better care of our health. It also improves our heart health. A study out of Boston, Mass. Followed patients after an acute coronary event, and those that kept a gratitude journal 8 weeks after actually showed reductions in levels of several inflammatory biomarkers. Another study out of University of San Diego followed high-risk cardiac patients. Again, those that kept gratitude journals also showed a similar reduction in several inflammatory biomarkers. Gratitude does foster greater mental well-being. A study done on Vietnam War veterans showed that those that practiced gratitude actually had lower levels of PTSD. Research shows that grateful people are more charitable, they have more satisfying relationships, and a greater resilience to trauma. And Monday was the anniversary of 9/11. We looked at a study completed after 9/11 and found that the number one contributor to resilience after the terrorist attacks was gratitude. And there's also workplace trauma in the form of layoffs, uncertainty of organizational changes, and the unfortunate violence that some organizations have experienced. This past spring, we took part in a training on active shooter. So the threats are real, and building resilience is very important. There's also a pay it forward response. Some of you may have seen that movie. Gratitude makes us feel good, and when we experience that, we want to be able to give that same experience to others. It also generates pro-social behaviors. It strengthens relationships, whether those relationships are personal with our family or work relationships with our teams. I had the pleasure of listening to Sonia Lyubomirsky, who's a researcher at Stanford, last year at a conference, and her studies indicate that we come into this world with a 50% set point of happiness, and that 40% of our ability to increase happiness comes from intentional activities. And the top activities that she refers to are acts of kindness and gratitude. And only 10% of happiness comes from our circumstances. Yes, the correlation between employees' efforts and our rewards and recognition programs. Many of our organizations have them, but the research shows that they're often deficient, or that we totally leave rewards and recognitions up to our HR professionals, which is incorrect. There was a recent study by the John Templeton Foundation that found an existence of a gratitude gap. 90% of the survey participants considered themselves grateful, yet only 54% of the women and 48% of the men actually expressed gratitude. In addition, only 30% of the people in the survey said they expressed gratitude to their coworkers, and even less than that, gratitude to their boss. Studies that we looked at on reward and recognition programs find that if we adequately value the contributions of our employees, they would work harder. 86% said they would be prouder of their work. There'd be greater job satisfaction. They'd be more committed to the company and motivated towards achieving the goals. I bet most of you are familiar with the annual Fortune 100 Best Places to Work list. One of the 9 criteria for a company to make this list is giving and showing appreciation. I think that's pretty cool. And if there's any nurses participating in today's webinar, you'll be interested in the gratitude survey that showed gratitude as a consistent predictor of less exhaustion, less cynicism, more proactive behaviors, fewer absences due to illness, and a higher rating of a healthy and safe work climate. At our October webinar, we'll have a deeper review of the neuroscience of gratitude and looking at the studies that show the correlates of gratitude and neuroscience as they positively impact organizational wellness. We're lucky that there are some wonderful neurochemicals of gratitude, such as dopamine, serotonin, which has been called the leadership chemical, and oxytocin. They're all released when we receive positive feedback on our performance or our teamwork, or when we simply reflect or write about what we're grateful for. They all play a role in tapping into our willpower and motivation. It helps foster those pro-social team behaviors and builds trust. Our brain sees our workplace as a social system, and to improve teamwork or increase collaboration or build engagement, we really have to engage the social brain. R&R programs that adopt the new neural knowledge helps improve overall psychological capital of our workforce, which is defined simply as the positive and developmental state of an employee. So let's talk about the gratitude obstacles. Entitlement. Did you know that entitlement is actually the opposite of gratitude? If we're feeling entitled to something, we won't be able to get to a state of gratitude. Materialism certainly blocks gratitude. We're hardwired for negativity. That saved us as a species, so we automatically see what's not working well or what's wrong. Distractions are an obstacle. That lack of mindfulness that we have in our lives today, we have a process called gratitude maps, and we'll discuss that in October and November as a way of overcoming the gratitude gap, as a way of dealing with the constant distractions that we have in our life. And some of us might consider gratitude that soft stuff. It makes us feel too vulnerable to show gratitude or to express gratitude. Another obstacle is if we are unable to accept that we are where we are today in our lives without the support of someone else, then we are obstructed from gratitude. So guidelines, research shows that journaling is one of the top practices, and that you can journal several times a week, not necessarily every day. I also read a research study recently that said 1 time a week consistently can also provide some of the benefits that we just talked about. Gratitude density is a very important part of practicing gratitude. We must capture the depth and the breadth of what we are grateful for. What did someone do for us? What did we benefit from? That specificity in what we write about and what we reflect on in our gratitude practice. Another guideline is to consider the absence of positivity. What would our life be like if we hadn't met our spouse? If we didn't have our best friend? Remembering the bad is also another guideline to look back at where we were at some point in our life and where we are today. And as leaders, building culture, a culture of gratitude, it starts at the top. One way to begin gratitude within your workplace, especially those that might feel a bit vulnerable, is to start with the invisible people in your organization or in your community. They're often overlooked. And since you don't have any responsibility for their job performance, it might be an easier place to get this started. And care should be taken to never allow gratitude to be about something that you have that someone else does not. It's not a competitive sport. Theodore Roosevelt has a quote Comparison is the thief of joy. Here's another quote. The deepest craving of human nature is the need to be appreciated. William James was a physician, author, philosopher. You know, we always say what we pay attention to, we get more of. And so if we pay attention to what's wrong, we'll get more of that. And if we pay attention to what we're grateful for, we'll have more of that. Some personal practices: journaling, listing 3 good things we're grateful for, 3 people that we're grateful for. One of the best forms of practice is to write a letter of gratitude to someone, deliver it to them, and read it to them. And if they're no longer alive, take that letter and read it to someone who also knew that person. For professional gratitude practices, a couple of dates to remember. Appreciation Day is March 3rd of every year. We've got World Gratitude Day coming up. Lead by example starts at the top. Peer-to-peer recognition. Find out what your coworkers would like to have as recognition. There's a company, Snack Nation, and on Friday at 4 p.m. every week, they have what they call a crush. And it's a form of peer-to-peer recognition where they recognize each other for things that they're grateful for. Or start a gratitude journal. It's not out of the question. University of Berkeley Finance Department has an electronic platform that they use to show recognition and appreciation. And a few suggestions about World Gratitude Day. Some of the things that you can do is perhaps feature a team accomplishment in a public way. Maybe consider sending an employee to a conference or offer employees some training programs. Ask for interest in convening a group that might be interested in learning about the research and developing gratitude programs, whether it's for your wellness programs, your leadership development, or your rewards and recognition programs. And consider celebrating the diversity of your workplace by recognizing our differences. We had a team a few years ago that tied their diversity to giving thanks to the many foods and customs of the other countries and ethnicities that were on the team. If you have other ideas, please include them in the chat box. Here's the save the dates. We will send out this recording to all of the participants. You'll have these dates in that follow-up email. But now please let me know if you have any questions or if you've been able to respond to some of the initial questions that we talked about. You know, one of the things that I wanted to mention to you is some work done by Dr. Barbara Fredrickson, University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill. She actually has an emotions lab. And what she has discovered is that we actually experience more positive emotions in a given day, such as gratitude, but they're fleeting. We burn through the positive emotions quickly. If you saw a beautiful sunrise this morning, that awe passed quickly. It's the negative emotions that have the teeth that really stick with us. We have a question about what my personal gratitude practice is. I have a very consistent practice of writing in my gratitude journal. I practice at least one day a week. Every Friday morning before I get started, I pick up my journal and reflect back on the week as to all of the things that I'm grateful for. I also have put up several visual cues in my office and in my home that remind me of all that I have to be grateful for, and drilling down again into that gratitude density, that specificity as to what I'm really grateful for in my life. Another question, how did I get interest in gratitude? You know, I incorporate this gratitude into my coaching practice. And so one day I came home and I put a whiteboard up in our kitchen on the island, and I wrote out, I am grateful for. And before I knew it, my daughter, my son, my husband would add to the whiteboard of all the things they were grateful for, and we ran out of room. So I created an acronym, IMG4, I am grateful for, and we continue to practice listing those things that we're grateful for. It seems to work because we have given those whiteboards with the IMG4 magnet to all of our family members so that they can participate in gratitude as well. There are some gratitude tools. Someone's asking, please go to www.img-4.com and see if there's any tools that can benefit you. Can I explain materialism as an obstacle? If we value what we have or what we don't have in particular, the type of car we drive, the type of clothes we wear, the type of house we live in, if those are at the top of our list as being important, those materialistic goods will not allow us to feel grateful for the true and meaningful things that we have in our life. Someone said, do I have a journal available? There is one that's going to be printed this fall on the healing impact of gratitude. And someone is asking the impact of social media on gratitude and positivity. I love that question. You know, when we get a like on Facebook or we get a text message on our phones, we actually experience a shot of dopamine, and it makes us feel good, but it also can be quite addicting. So we have to be very, very careful there. How will we learn about the upcoming sessions? We will send an email. We will send a copy of this recording. That invite will be going out shortly for both the October and the November webinars. So if this webinar in any way connected with you today, if anything that I have said has resonated with you, please sign up. Lots of more research to drill down into applications that will truly be able, you will truly be able to apply both personally and professionally. I'm looking at the time. I think we have followed up with as many questions as we can. And so thank you so much for your participation in today's program. I will stay on later if you would like to talk further. If not, I hope to see you in October.